Are my dad and mom's move finished? Ben decided on his own that we would live together without consulting me, and he didn't help at all. He never seems to want to listen to my opinion. He proceeds with things based on his own ideas and acts on his own. Even now, he only asked about the situation over the phone, but I don't even know where he is. I had been disappointed in Ben before, but it was thanks to that person that I finally made up my mind. Yes, it's all finished. I just moved into a high-rise condo myself. What? While hearing his surprised voice, I laughed with my son, Aaron, who was next to me. He had left everything up to me, so he hadn't noticed anything. What do you mean with a high-rise condo? A high-rise condo means just that. A high-rise condo. With that, I ended the call. The next day, Ben contacted me. Apparently, he had ended a trip with his beloved parents in the middle to come and see our house. There's nothing here. Where is the luggage? Where could it be? What do you mean, where could it be? For details, please ask that person directly. After saying that, I heard a voice of anger from the other end of the phone. I, Cindy, am a 57-year-old housewife. When I was younger, I worked in sales, where I was a top performer and secured many contracts, so I was relied upon in my department. However, I quit because Ben, who was once my boss and trainer, asked me to. After many talks and discussions we had together, Ben confessed as we were close in age, and after several years of dating, we got married. He asked me to quit my job and dedicate myself to the family, promising that he would never let me struggle, so I resigned upon marrying despite having many regrets. After that, at the age of 33, I gave birth to our son, Aaron, and it felt like I was leading a happy family life. Ben doted on Aaron very much, sometimes to the point of spoiling him, which often exasperated me. On the other hand, I didn't have a good relationship with my in-laws, especially with my mother-in-law, Diane, with whom I often disagreed about how to raise Aaron, resulting in a strained relationship. It was around this time that Aaron went to university, became independent, and started living alone. Ben reluctantly agreed on the condition that he would visit regularly. After that, it was just the two of us. But Ben started diverting the money he used to spend on Aaron to his own parents. While there was nothing wrong with that, the continued purchase of luxury goods, trips, and gourmet food continued. Aaron didn't need them, so there was no problem. But my mother-in-law, who would take anything she could get, started to affect our finances. Ben, where is the $1,000 I left here? I used it because Mom said she needed a wallet. What are you talking about? I told you not to touch it because it's for the rent. Shut up. It's my money that I earned. What's wrong with spending it as I like? A mere housewife like you shouldn't complain to the head of the house. Whenever I say anything about money, Ben raises his voice in objection. Housewife, that's a term Ben often brings up during our arguments. You're the one who asked me to become a housewife. You being unemployed is a fact. If you can't earn, don't complain. If you hate me being unemployed, I'll go out and get a part-time job. Hey, don't joke around. If I allow my wife to work outside, I'll be seen as incompetent. There are still people with such views today. Ben, unnecessarily proud, wouldn't accept me working outside. When I started working secretly, he found out through his mother where I was working and came yelling at me. In such circumstances, I couldn't even take up a part-time job, so I had no choice but to start working from home. Initially, the income was modest, but it gradually increased, and I was able to manage by using the money for living expenses. Honestly, if the income continues to increase, I might consider divorcing Ben. One day, when I was working from home, the doorbell suddenly rang. I wasn't expecting any visitors, but thinking it might be a delivery, I opened the door to find my mother-in-law standing there. Hi, is something wrong? Nothing's wrong, you shut in. She yelled as barged into the house. Again, this word shut in filled me with disgust. When I was working, my mother-in-law had told me to quit and become a housewife. But once I actually retired upon marriage, she started blaming me like this. Ben is earning money, and that's how you can live. Yet, you dare to defy your husband. She would not listen to me at all and kept attacking me until she was satisfied. Just when I thought I couldn't concentrate on work because of this situation. Diane, how many times do I need to say it? Stop bothering Cindy, darling. Cindy, I'm sorry that Diane is bothering you again. My father-in-law, Henry, had come to take my mother-in-law home. He has always been rational, and ever since he retired, he has been gardening while also keeping my overly assertive mother-in-law in check. He had returned from gardening today and, noticing my mother-in-law was missing, came over worried. I had received his help many times. When will I see my grandchild? My mother-in-law once asked. If you keep pressuring Cindy like that, she'll feel even less like having children. He had defended me when I was struggling with fertility issues and alleviated the pressure from my mother-in-law. And after Aaron was born, when my mother-in-law tried to take him from me, this child is a precious heir. I will raise him. Please give Aaron back. Then saying enough, my father-in-law rescued Aaron from her hands. He also scrapped the cohabitation plan that had been proposed at the time when he saw that my mother-in-law might become too intrusive. Ben had sided with his mother and wanted to live together, but thanks to my father-in-law firmly saying, "You're the husband. Put your wife and child first," we were able to avoid cohabitation. If I had lived with my mother-in-law, I might not have endured her mistreatment. I am very grateful to my father-in-law. Thanks to him, I've been able to maintain a reasonable distance from my in-laws. Amidst being frustrated with life with Ben, I suddenly received news that my mother had passed away. She had a chronic illness, and my sister had been caring for her. My father passed away early, and my mother hadn't touched the assets he left, resulting in a considerable inheritance for my sister and me. What will you do about your parents' home? Ben asked me. My sister has her own home, so she said she'd give it to me if I want it. How about moving to your parents' home then? He suggested while we were sorting out the inheritance. We currently live in a rented house, but my parents' home is quite old. Yes, how about moving after renovating it? I suggested. How will you fund the renovations? Ben asked. I'll use the inheritance, I replied. I haven't told Ben the specific amount of the inheritance. If he knew there was a large amount, he might give it to his mother. That's why I've only told him about the renovation costs. That shouldn't be a problem then, Ben agreed. I felt relieved inside. Moving to my parents' home would mean being long distance from my in-laws. That means I could also keep a distance from the problematic mother-in-law. With that in mind, I began actively preparing to move. The renovations were eventually completed, and I moved to my parents' home. What's this? I thought, because there were more boxes than expected. The moving company handled it, but I was surprised by the amount. While having my suspicions, I opened a box of unrecognizable luggage and found my mother-in-law's clothes inside. Ben, there's a box here packed with your mother's clothes. What's this all about? I asked. Did I forget to tell you? My parents and I are going to live in this house together. What? I was astonished. I was dumbfounded by this sudden announcement. Why do we need to live with my in-laws in my parents' house? I couldn't help but argue with Ben. I didn't hear anything about this. The renovation using the inheritance was meant for us to live together. Shut up. I've already decided. Ben raised his voice and pulled out a document. Holding the document, I was shocked. A divorce paper? If you oppose it, it's divorce. How will you live if you leave me, an unemployed woman? Ben said. The divorce paper already had Ben's signature on it. While I stood there stunned, Ben started packing his travel bag with clothes. Pack up the luggage and prepare for my parents' move by the time I get back. Wait, where are you going? I asked. I'm going on a little trip. I sold my parents' house, so I'll use that money. I'll stay at my parents' house for 2 or 3 days, then go on a luxurious trip for a week. Ben answered and left. I was left feeling the worst. The cohabitation was decided without my consent. He left the bothersome task of sorting things to me, and he went on a trip with his parents. At that moment, I decided to retaliate thoroughly. During the preparations to move, I spread the insecticide I had stored throughout the house and left. I am very averse to insects, and although I knew the renovated house was safe, I had bought the insecticide just in case. As I looked at the divorce paper in my hand, the phone suddenly rang. That call led me to make a significant decision. Aaron, it's been a while. Mom, what's up? I contacted Aaron and received some help from him. 3 hours later, an unwelcome call from my mother-in-law came. You made me go through something terrible. What? It turned out that my mother-in-law had borrowed a spare key from Ben and entered the house without permission, just after I had spread the insecticide. And she almost fell from breathing in the air. She threatened at the end, I'll sue you. I felt it was karma. It's a far bigger issue to enter someone's house without permission, I retorted and hung up the phone. Since she's still lively enough to complain over the phone, she must be fine despite inhaling the insecticide. Thinking about cutting ties with such a family made me feel relieved. And a week later, when everything had settled, Ben, who hadn't contacted me at all, reached out. Are my dad and mom's move finished? Ben decided on his own that we would live together without consulting me, and he didn't help at all. He never seems to want to listen to my opinion. He proceeds with things based on his own ideas and acts on his own. Even now, he only asked about the situation over the phone, but I don't even know where he is. I had been disappointed in Ben before, but it was thanks to that person that I finally made up my mind. Yes, it's all finished. I just moved into a high-rise condo myself. War. While hearing his surprised voice, I laughed with my son, Aaron, who was next to me. He had left everything up to me, so he hadn't noticed anything. What do you mean with a high-rise condo? A high-rise condo means just that. A high-rise condo. With that, I ended the call. Finally, I was able to cut ties with Ben. My gratitude for the people who cooperated with Aaron was immeasurable. Thinking back, I headed to the sparkling new kitchen to prepare a special meal for Aaron. That day, when I told Aaron everything over the phone, he came to help right away. It's good you could come, but is work okay? No problem. I explained the situation, and they told me to go right away. Aaron works in real estate, and his company was started by a college senior. Since he had helped since his student days, it seems they understood immediately when he explained the situation. Mom, I need you to finish the contract today or tomorrow. I understand. So, I completed the necessary procedures, and I was able to move into the new high-rise condo. Today, as I was preparing for the celebration, Ben contacted me. Just imagining the reaction of my selfish husband and meddling mother-in-law when they visit the new home excites me. Hey, what's this? The next day, Ben contacted me. Apparently, he had ended a trip with his beloved parents in the middle to come and see our house. There's nothing here. Where is the luggage? Where could it be? What do you mean, where could it be? For details, please ask that person directly. After saying that, I could hear a voice of anger from the other end of the phone. Enough with the jokes. Ben let out a small scream. Hearing that voice and trying to suppress my laughter, Aaron appeared. Cindy, I'm sorry for the trouble my family has caused. Soon after, I heard my father-in-law's voice from the other end of the phone. They seemed to be on speaker, and I could faintly hear Ben and my mother-in-law's voices as well. It's okay. You supported me. What's that? Explain. I sent your luggage to another location. The day Ben left the house, it was my father-in-law who contacted me. He first apologized for not being able to stop the unilateral actions of Ben and my mother-in-law. Then he said he would handle them and decided to send their luggage to the specified address. Thanks to the movers arranged by my father-in-law, the luggage transfer went smoothly. So, what will happen to this house? After explaining everything, I heard Ben's voice of confusion. I sold that house. What? You sold it? Why would you do something like that on your own? That house was inherited by me. My sister didn't want it, so she agreed it was okay to sell, and I decided to sell it. What's the problem? The house was well located and had been beautifully renovated, so it quickly found a buyer. In fact, Aaron Sr. liked it and immediately offered to buy it. As a result, the house was already owned by its new owner. Isn't that a bit too selfish? Ben, which mouth of yours can say such things? It was you who decided everything without listening to Cindy's opinion. Now I will show you where you two will live. Wait a moment. What do you mean by you two? I've had enough of Diane. Hopefully, this way you'll understand. In the calm yet stern voice of my father-in-law, I could sense my mother-in-law's surprise. She was probably under my father-in-law's sharp gaze. Dad and Grandma, you're underestimating Mom too much. At that moment, Aaron, standing next to me, said as calmly as my father-in-law, I've heard everything from Mom. Why should my mom, who renovated the house after receiving it from Grandma and Auntie, have to give it to you guys? Dad, you must know how Grandma has been treating Mom. Despite that, why would you consider living together? Aaron, that's no way to speak to your father. Father? Just giving orders and expecting obedience. Is that what a father does? You ignored Mom's opinions, and sometimes mine too, didn't you? Honestly, I don't want to be a father like you, and I don't want my loved ones to meet people like Grandma. The direct words from Aaron, whom they had doted on, left them speechless. After that, I could hear my father-in-law sighing on the other end of the phone. I'm truly sorry, Cindy, he said, and then he ended the call. Just before the call ended, I heard surprised voices from Ben and my mother-in-law. With that, my father-in-law will probably handle those two. By the way, this high-rise condo is really wonderful, isn't it? Yes, I was hoping I could live here someday. The purchase of this high-rise condo was smoothly financed with the money from selling the house, my savings from when I was single, and the remaining inheritance. It looks like I will be able to live off the income from my work-at-home job. It seems like we'll have peaceful days ahead for a while. You know, I actually valued Mom over Dad because you taught me proper things, even though you were strict. According to Aaron, while Ben would buy him anything he wanted, he seldom provided strict guidance and rarely listened to him. Even when he talked about school, Ben would just say I see and not engage seriously, always suggesting, let's go shopping next holiday, only wanting to go where he wanted. More than Ben, it was important for me to listen carefully, sometimes scold him, and seriously consider his future. It's true that since Aaron got through his rebellious phase, he occasionally gave Ben cold looks. Also, I remember when Ben was criticizing me, Aaron would intervene as if to protect me, saying, that can wait. We have something important to discuss now. Children are more sensitive to their parents' actions than we might think. Every time Dad said something to you, Mom, he would insult you for being unemployed. So, I decided to send money to help you. Huh? I hadn't heard about that. I heard it from Grandpa. Apparently, all the money I sent ended up going to Grandma. My father-in-law had long suspected my mother-in-law's extravagant lifestyle. Indeed, Ben was sending her travel vouchers and gourmet food, but that wasn't all. Aside from that, my mother-in-law was frequently enjoying luxury lunches and shopping. The gifts Ben sent every month couldn't possibly explain it all. Despite this, the shared savings remained untouched. Turns out that all the remittances from Aaron were being taken by Ben and passed directly to my mother-in-law. I can't believe it. Knowing that, I've decided I don't want anything more to do with Dad. Aaron's expression was stern, clearly indicating his resolve. He seemed to be at the peak of his anger. I no longer intend to support Dad, and Grandpa said he's going to divorce Grandma. That's right. As Aaron said, my father-in-law proceeded with the divorce from my mother-in-law afterward. My mother-in-law tried to cling to my father-in-law, but he was fed up with her and Ben's self-centered actions and coldly pushed them away. I'll split the assets, but don't expect any inheritance. My father-in-law stated decisively, deciding to spend all his available funds and move into a facility. Due to my mother-in-law's wastefulness, there wasn't much inheritance left in the first place. Afterward, my father-in-law moved into the facility, letting go of my mother-in-law and Ben. As I was finally enjoying some peaceful days, I got another call from Ben. Hey, it's me, Ben. I know. What do you want? It's really tough, really. Reluctantly listening to him, the wasteful spending by my mother-in-law continued as usual. Ben had used up all the money he earned, and now they were even dipping into their living expenses. Previously, I supported the household with the money I earned, and we had remittances from Aaron, but now that these were gone, they were in a difficult situation. You're my wife, aren't you? Help me. No, I'm not your wife anymore. What? The divorce papers I received that day were promptly filled out and submitted by me. That means our marital relationship had already ended long ago. Unbelievable. Why did you submit it that day? You were the one who wrote it and brought it to me, right? I just followed through and submitted it. There shouldn't be any problem. Ben was at a loss for words upon hearing my response. He probably didn't anticipate that his own actions would backfire on him. So, can't we start over? What? No way. I've finally become free from you. There's no reason to go back. As I responded coldly, there was a noise on the other end of the phone. It's me, Cindy. What is it, Diane? It seemed like my mother-in-law had picked up the phone. I felt a strong aversion inside me upon hearing her contrived, sweet voice. I'm really sorry for being cold to you. So, do you remember how much I suffered? You tried to make me quit my job even before we were married, blamed me for not being able to have children, and tried to take Aaron away from me. If it weren't for my father-in-law helping, things would have been much worse. If you were in the same situation, do you think you could forgive me? My mother-in-law kept silent after my question. I will never forget nor forgive the treatment I received from her. And I have no intention to forgive Ben either. While you two were happily traveling, I was being ignored, wasn't I? From now on, please enjoy your wonderful lives. Goodbye. After declaring that, I hung up the phone, blocked his number, and cut off all ties with Ben and his family. Afterward, I heard that Ben and my mother-in-law were reluctantly living in a cheap apartment provided by my father-in-law. Ben had spent so much on his mother that there was hardly any savings left. He had a decent income, so he initially planned to save a bit before moving out. My mother-in-law tried to start housekeeping but was unable to curb her spending habits and do housekeeping, since she had been away from domestic chores for years, thanks to my father-in-law who had retired and taken over the household duties. While she was unaccustomed to housework, she fell and broke her leg, necessitating care. Overwhelmed with caregiving and housework, Ben accumulated fatigue, which led to mistakes at work, resulting in an irrevocable error that eventually forced him to resign. That's why he contacted me for help. Aaron visited and reported on Ben's plight, but he declined to help him. He should have at least saved the money I sent. Indeed, but regretting it now won't help. Meanwhile, my life was progressing smoothly. Thanks to Aaron and his friends recommending me, my client base for home-based work has increased, significantly improving my income. Aaron, who used to barely visit when Ben was around, now comes by frequently, and although he offers to send money, I decline as I'm not struggling financially due to my earnings. Thanks to that, Aaron has been able to save money and has moved into the same high-rise condo. Whenever I bring over some side dishes, he is always delighted and grateful. I'm truly happy. Being able to work at my own pace and having my beloved Aaron nearby makes every day immensely joyful for me. Years have passed. Today is a special day. Mom, I want to introduce someone to you. It's the day Aaron is bringing his fiancée. She is someone I've known well for a long time since she has been dating Aaron since high school. Ben doesn't know about this because it would cause trouble if he found out. Well, I doubt he would be interested anyway. Aaron is a bit too kind, so I feel reassured to entrust him to his capable fiancé. Just this time there is a formal greeting as fiancé and mother, so both of us are somewhat nervous. We know each other, so relax. By the way, there's something important I need to tell you. To my surprise, she was already pregnant with Aaron's child. That's what led to a prompt marriage. But seeing them so happy, I sent my heartfelt blessings. Determined not to become like my mother-in-law, I decided to support them while maintaining a healthy distance. Thanks to such measures, I feel that the relationship with my daughter-in-law is being well maintained. Occasionally, they come to show me their child's face, and we have been going out more frequently without burdening each other. Contrarily, I am unaware of the current situation of Ben and my mother-in-law as they have been abandoned by others. One's actions ultimately return to oneself. I must act carefully. With this awareness, I continue to work and handle household chores within my limits, enjoying a peaceful daily life.
My name is Mia. For the past 28 years, I have believed in and acted according to the theory of inherent goodness. I usually believe that mutual understanding can be achieved through open-hearted dialogue with people, and I have indeed built relationships that way. However, I have met someone I cannot fully understand for the first time. This person is my brother's fiancée, which I had never imagined. On the day my brother invited her home, our entire family, including myself, was thrilled from early in the morning. My brother, Nathan, is 31 years old, and we knew about his girlfriend, whom he has been dating for about a year. He has become more fashionable lately, looking happily at his smartphone, and 3 weeks ago, he took a short trip with her over the weekend. Our family had been discussing that it was about time for Nathan to propose marriage. Then, Nathan announced, "I'm inviting her over this weekend because I'm considering marriage." Her name is Sherry, and she is 26 years old, 2 years younger than me. It feels a bit strange that she will be my younger sister-in-law. Indeed, if I were to divorce your father and remarry a younger man, he would become your father too. In that case, I will marry a woman younger than Mia. She would become a younger mother, joked my father. We all laughed heartily at what he said. We are a family of 6, including our parents, my brother and me, and our 2 cats, Loki and Milo. Our home is quite harmonious. The day Sherry was to visit, we planned to have lunch as a family, and our mother had started preparing early in the morning. Western food is best. I wonder what her family's food is like. Maybe it's light. Our home has strong flavors as Dad preferred, and we usually have slightly rich-tasting food. What if she doesn't like it? My mother was worried as she prepared for her visit. I helped prepare an avocado salad and fresh spring rolls with beef stew as the main dish. Sherry has a petite and delicate build, not flashy but exuding a charming beauty. She seemed very reserved and calm. Later, I would realize that first impressions of people are not always reliable. During the meal, we introduced ourselves and enjoyed a pleasant time. Sherry ate less, as expected, and seeing this, Nathan was encouraging her to eat more. "I'm sorry I can't eat much," Sherry said apologetically, and both our parents encouraged her, saying, "Don't worry about it." Meanwhile, Nathan, using me as an example, said, "It's much better than eating tons like Mia, which was unnecessary." However, I also had someone fun who told me eating with Mia makes any food taste delicious. Cheers to eating. For dessert, Sherry brought a cake, and our mother prepared a special tea to accompany it. "Nathan, you are tall like your dad. Your dad is also tall and charming." "My father has completely become an old man," Sherry said, making my father blush a bit. But since then, I began to feel an indescribable discomfort. Sherry clearly engaged less in conversation with my mother and me. She mostly talked with the men and gave short responses when my mother or I spoke to her, and the conversation didn't liven up at all. She showed no intention of making the conversation lively. "Excuse me, may I use the bathroom?" Sherry asked as she stood up, and my mother quickly replied, "Of course, Mia will show you the way." Our house isn't very large, but we usually guide people this way to hide miscellaneous items and luggage in the hallway. "Which university did you graduate from, Mia?" Sherry asked as we left the living room. "Actually, I didn't go to college. I wasn't good at studying," I answered. "Is it normal to be interested in the educational background of your future sister-in-law? Maybe I should ask Nathan later." Then she said, "Oh, is that so? Nathan mentioned that you're unemployed. Nathan, have you been portraying me as someone who stays at home unemployed?" "Actually, I am a somewhat renowned plush toy maker. I create plush toys modeled after past pets and imaginary creatures. Actually, I make plush toys at home." "Sherry, do you have a favorite animal? If you request one, I'll make it and give it to you as a gift." I thought I had done my best to be hospitable, but she politely declined me with a smile. "I'm not very fond of plush toys or dolls, and I don't really like animals either, so I'll have to decline." As I stood in a daze in front of the bathroom, Sherry opened the door and went inside. What just happened? I felt as if my existence had been completely negated. I went back to the living room and complained to my brother. Does Sherry dislike animals? She said she hates plush toys. When I tried to give her a present, she declined. Is that so? I also gave her a plush toy once and she cried saying she was sorry, but she was not good with it. As a result, I ended up buying a necklace, Nathan said with a wry smile. Please wait. Was she hoping for jewelry from the beginning? Is it narrow-minded of me to suspect such a thing? Actually, it's not that she hates animals, but she has allergies to dogs and cats. Since we have Loki and Milo, she thought it would be difficult to live together. We were going to discuss that today, Nathan explained. Both our parents were surprised but showed understanding, saying, if that's the situation, there's nothing we can do, and Loki and Milo are family, so we can't just kick them out. Still, I had my doubts about her allergy. Sure, there are people with animal allergies, but maybe it was just an excuse to avoid living with her mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Is there really an allergy to plush toys? Are there people who react allergically to that? It is clear that my gift was rejected. When Sherry came back from the bathroom, my father had started asking about how they met. She works at the front desk of a client company, Nathan began, revealing that Sherry was known among his colleagues as the cute petite bright woman at the reception. Nathan himself works for a large corporation. Simply put, he is an elite. Once, a not-so-petite woman from another front desk invited her to a joint company mixer. I'm actually not good at mixers, Sherry said with a troubled expression. But thanks to that, I got to know Nathan better, so I'm glad I participated, she said, looking up at my brother. Oh, my pathetic brother. Completely smitten, his head is in the clouds. My father was also completely smitten, saying, please look after my son, and suggesting to me, Mia, you should try to be a bit more ladylike like Sherry. That is really none of their business. After Sherry left, my mother, who was cleaning up, said, I wonder if she didn't like the food. She didn't say anything about it and didn't eat much. I was also concerned about that. While helping, I quietly asked my mother. Ultimately, she only talked with Nathan and Dad and hardly interacted with us, right? Oh, now that you mention it, I think you're right. I always saw her smiling, so I missed it, my mother said, not yet having negative feelings towards her. I discussed all these events later with my boyfriend, Keith. Yeah, there are women like that. Popular with men but have few female friends, and if they do have friends, they only use them to stand out. Keith expressed negative feelings towards Sherry. Do you think so too? That's troubling. To think she will be my brother's wife and my sister-in-law in the future, I felt very heavy-hearted. Keith is 34 years old and owns several cafes and stores, and his unique store designs often make a splash on social media. He asked me to place the plush toys I made in his stores, and that's how we became close. He is interested in mythical creatures like Cerberus and dragons, and other bizarre creatures he comes up with. These plush toys have been lined up in his stores, creating a buzz, and my reputation in the area has greatly improved. I'd also like to meet them. Next time your brother and his girlfriend come over, can I join too? Keith suggested. He is clearly enjoying this. Hey, think about it. How about using my store for the after party? He suggested. The venue is spacious and serves not only coffee but also alcohol and various dishes, so it might actually be a good choice. It would make a perfect excuse to introduce Sherry to Keith. For that purpose, I planned a day filled with various elements, inviting my brother and Sherry to use the place as a venue for the after party, and introducing my boyfriend Keith. Sherry's reaction was truly noteworthy. She was surprised by the flashy and eye-catching interior of the shop, and showed great interest upon learning that it was popular on social media. I'm surprised Mia has such a wonderful boyfriend, she commented to Keith, and when she learned about his other stores, she looked at me a bit enviously. I felt a bit smug inside. My clueless brother didn't notice the women's strategic moves at all, and exclaimed, Mia, I thought you were shut in. But when did you get such an amazing boyfriend? And told Keith to take good care of my sister. I'm not shut in, though. In the end, we were turned down from using that place for the after party because it was a bit far from the wedding venue and the decor was too eccentric, which might not appeal to the older guests. It was just an excuse, so no problem. But maybe Sherry wanted to divert attention from us if she actually were to be a patron at my boyfriend's store. Yeah, really. It's better not to get too close to that girl. If you talk bad about her to Nathan, I think you would be the one blamed, Keith told me, leaving me suspicious. Would my brother believe the words of a new girlfriend over his sister of 28 years? The first family meeting was held. Sherry chose a rather sophisticated French restaurant. To be honest, both my mother and I have little experience with French cuisine. Sherry glanced at us disdainfully as we clumsily handled the knife and fork, unfamiliar with the manners. And the men were completely oblivious to it. The usual pattern. It was clear that Sherry's father doted on his daughter, and although her mother had a very humble and kind demeanor, similar to Sherry, I was surprised to sit that she almost ignored her own mother. Living with a doting father and a daughter who scorns her seems very difficult. My mother also commented that, poor mother. Mom, I don't think this marriage is good, I bravely told her. That's true. I also feel there are some problems with Sherry, she replied. The problem is that the men don't notice it at all. Hey Nathan, does Sherry have any female friends? What's up all of a sudden? Yes, she does. Like that not-so-tall receptionist girl, she's supposed to be her friend. From his wording, it felt like Sherry considered herself superior to that girl. Sherry only talks to you, Dad, and even Keith, always ignoring us, the ladies in the family. What are you talking about? That's not true. Sherry is not like that. Please stop acting like a jealous sister-in-law from now on. No matter how much I conveyed it, my brother thought I was just being jealous. Wedding preparations were going smoothly, and Sherry had already quit her job to focus on them. My brother said, I'm sorry to leave everything to Sherry, but I felt that she wanted to control the wedding exactly as she wished. There was nothing I could do, and the wedding day was approaching. Then that phone call came. The night before the wedding, I received an unexpected direct call from Sherry on my mobile phone. I hadn't given her my contact information, so Nathan must have passed it on to her. Hello, Mia. Regarding tomorrow's ceremony and reception, it is dishonorable for the family to have an unemployed person who can't contribute financially to attend. Please refrain from coming if you're poor. We have not prepared a seat for you. I was at a loss for words at her unexpected request. What was she thinking? I was looking forward to attending and felt more surprise than anger, and the call ended without me being able to respond. Mom, Sherry just told me on the phone not to invite me to the ceremony. What? What does that mean? Then I contacted Nathan. It's unimaginable that I, as his sister, would not be allowed to participate in the ceremony or reception. Nathan must think the same. It was hard to get in touch with him because he was at work, but when we finally spoke, he said, Oh, I'm sorry. I thought maybe you hated Sherry, and I couldn't argue well. Sherry thinks you hate her, so there was no need to force you to participate, and receiving formal congratulations from someone who dislikes her is painful, he told me. Is that really true? Did she actually show tears? And does Nathan believe that? I was just stunned. It seems like nothing I say will have any effect on my brother. My mother and I looked at each other and sighed in frustration. Just then, the doorbell rang, signaling a visitor. Surprisingly, Sherry's mother was standing at the door. I overheard my daughter talking on the phone. I think this is unacceptable, so I rushed over here. I'm sorry for the sudden visit, she apologized in the entrance. We invited Sherry's mother inside and listened to her story. She is, even from a mother's point of view, a terrible child. She disregards me, and her father does whatever she says, never listening to me. It's been like this for a long time. Sherry's mother spoke sadly, yet firmly. The first time I noticed it was when she was just 3 years old. I scolded her for touching my makeup. It's dangerous if she puts it in her mouth. But she didn't cry at all, she just stared at me defiantly. When her father came home, she ran to the entrance, clung to his legs, and burst into tears. When he asked what happened, I explained that I had scolded Sherry for playing with the makeup. He hugged her, saying, You're such a girly girl at only 3 years old. At that moment, Sherry looked at me and smiled smugly. Hearing this, I shuddered. I couldn't believe she had been manipulating people from the age of 3, using her appearance to protect herself. According to Sherry's mother, she is not only skilled at influencing men but also powerful women to support her. Since then, Sherry has always behaved like a sweet daughter in front of her father, and a capricious child towards her mother. Even when Sherry's mother complained about her behavior to her father, he wouldn't listen at all. The problem is with you, the mother. Why bring up such paranoid delusions? I've heard that even between mothers and daughters, there can be jealousy among women. I didn't think you were such a person. But it's shameful that you're jealous of your daughter, he harshly criticized her. That's awful. I was at a loss for words. You really have suffered. I can only imagine how much you've endured, my mother comforted her, and Sherry's mother began to cry, unable to hold back her emotions. I've made up my mind. If Sherry refuses to let my daughter attend, I won't attend the ceremony either. I cannot support such a marriage. What, Mom? It's a big problem if the groom's mother suddenly cancels, I exclaimed in shock, while Sherry's mother also tearfully declared her refusal to attend. I won't attend either. I don't want to involve other families and cause more unhappiness. I've made up my mind, she said. I felt the situation escalating but also thought this might be a chance to stop my brother's marriage. She had clearly crossed a line. The impact of her mother's accusation was immeasurable. Sherry is definitely the type of person you should stay away from. Her becoming a part of the family would be a nightmare. To protect my brother, I want to stop this at all costs. For now, we booked a room at a hotel near the wedding venue and started planning together. We left a letter for our father saying, "There's a lot to prepare the night before the wedding, so we'll stay at the hotel and go directly to the venue." Men don't question when a woman says she needs to prepare. Especially Dad, my mother said. In the end, we decided to inform only my brother beforehand about the situation. The phone call from Sherry to me, her mother's supportive testimony, and our 3 women opposing this marriage. So we've decided not to attend tomorrow's wedding. It's not because of an accident or a crime, so please don't contact the police. You should think carefully too, my mother firmly said, and hung up the phone without hearing my brother's objections. Then, the 3 of us refused all contact from my brother and father. Somehow, I'm excited about this serious plan we're working on. Sherry's mother seemed to be especially enjoying herself. Then, the day of the wedding arrived. When we reached the venue, Dad and Nathan immediately came over to us. "Where have you been? How could you make us worry like this?" That was an understandable reaction, especially since it would indeed be a problem if my mother was absent. Apparently the car broke down on the way, and Nathan had been using that as an excuse. The venue was nearly full, and the bride and groom were about to enter. "Dad, did you notice that there is no seat for me? I couldn't find my name in the family seating area. Sherry called yesterday and said that an unemployed poor person would be a disgrace to the family, so she told me not to come. In fact, she never intended to prepare a seat for me." While my father was shocked, Sherry's father exclaimed, "Nonsense. My daughter would never say such a thing." "But it's true. I heard that phone call." Sherry's mother corroborated. An attendant approached and asked, "Is there a problem?" "Actually, I'm the groom's sister, and it seems there is no seat prepared for me." The attendant looked incredulous. "I don't need a meal, just a chair at least," I requested, and they added a chair to the family seating area. When the bride and groom entered, Sherry could not hide her surprise upon seeing my mother and me sitting in the family area. She looked like she wanted to say something but held back. Once the bride and groom were seated, we also stood up and borrowed the microphone from the event host. "I am the groom's mother. Thank you very much for attending this wedding despite your busy schedules. I am the bride's mother. Please forgive this sudden address." And then it was my turn to speak. "I am the groom's sister, and I cannot support this marriage today." My statement caused a momentary silence in the venue, followed by a murmur spreading through the crowd. Yesterday, Sherry called me directly and said, "Don't attend because an unemployed, poor person is a disgrace to the family. In fact, I am neither unemployed nor poor." But my brother sided with Sherry and did not support me. After this testimony, Sherry's mother continued, "I'm sorry, but Sherry has been skilled at manipulating men and looking down on women since she was little. Her father always obeys her words. No matter how much I appealed, I was always the one blamed." Then my mother concluded, "We do not wish for such a woman to be our son's spouse." I can't believe it. "Why would you say such things, Mom? Just because Mia and her mother-in-law dislike me? This is too much," Sherry said tearfully. The men in the venue immediately sympathized with her tears at the bride and groom's table. The atmosphere in the venue became tumultuous, and it seemed to be turning against us. However, there were people who broke this situation. 3 women seated at Sherry's friend's table stood up and began to testify about Sherry's past behaviors and words. One took the microphone and said, "We understand this story well." She continued, explaining that Sherry behaves entirely differently in front of men and women. She quickly grasps the situation and acts accordingly, skilled at maneuvering. Men are misled by her appearance and attitude, feeling the need to protect her, and women who criticize her are quickly vilified. She is adept at finding others' weaknesses and using them to manipulate people to her will. It seemed that these women had also been quite dissatisfied with how they had been treated by Sherry. Taking this opportunity, they began to accuse her one after another. Finally, one said, "Thank you for providing us with this platform to confess. The friends gathered here did not originally want to participate. The reality is that the men do not understand the truth. We want to show that people are not just their appearances." Sherry and her father's faces were filled with astonishment. The venue erupted into chaos. At that moment, Nathan began speaking with a solemn expression. "Thank you all for coming today. However, unfortunately, I have decided to call off this marriage." Looking back, my sister had sensed the truth early on. I was too caught up in my own perceptions to listen to her. Thinking calmly, marrying a woman who wouldn't even provide a seat for my sister is inappropriate. The aftermath was extremely challenging. We returned the gifts to the guests and negotiated cancellation fees with the venue. During this time, Sherry pleaded tearfully, "Everyone is trying to bring me down. This treatment shouldn't be allowed." It seems that only Sherry's father truly believed her tears. Since this incident, Nathan has developed significant doubts about trusting women. It's not surprising. I tried to encourage him by saying, "It's good that you were only planning to register your marriage later." And since we talked directly at the venue, we avoided the trouble of explaining individually, but it wasn't very comforting. Stepping back from Sherry, Nathan seemed to have sensed something too. "Next time I date someone, I'll listen to both your advice and Mom's," he said with a wry smile. As a result, the cancellation fees were split in half. Sherry and her father were displeased with this decision, but Sherry's mother pushed it through decisively. Afterward, Sherry's mother decided to divorce her husband and left the house. She now seems brighter and freer. Since then, she and my mother have bonded and have become good friends, visiting each other frequently. Sherry, having caused a major scandal, is shunned by former acquaintances and remains reclusive, unable to return to work. Her father still dotes on her, but they live in a deteriorating home, unable to do much. Will he only realize the importance of a wife or mother after losing them? Or is his anger over the ruined wedding stronger? "Hey, that was tough, huh? By the way, Mia, are you interested in having your own studio?" Keith made this proposal after the busy days had settled down. "Your plush toys are very popular. I was thinking maybe we could increase the production a bit. I provide the funds, so how about hiring some staff and opening an official workshop?" It was an attractive proposal, but I argued that I couldn't rely too much on him for everything. Then, he casually said, "Investing in a future wife is natural," and proposed to me. If it's okay to skip a wedding ceremony and reception. That reception we experienced has become a slightly bitter memory. Keith, smiling, then suggested, "How about we have a small party at my store instead?" While I feel a bit sorry for my brother, I'm cherishing my own happiness.